Welcome students, this are your notes for 12/8/2014 on point slope form. Alright, so far this year, everything we've been studying has been in y equals mx plus b form, okay, where m was our slope and b was our y-intercept. But today we're going to focus on what happens if they give you a point and a slope. This is point slope form, and it's found on your formula chart for your STAR test. Both of these forms are on there. And there's a third form that we're going to learn later in the year called standard form, and that'll be here in probably about 2 weeks. You can write a y equals mx plus b equation, like we could write y equals 3x plus 2. It could be written as a point slope form, it could be written as standard form. So they're all three the same thing, they're just different ways of looking at it. Alright, when we do point slope form, the formula is read y minus y sub 1. This is called y sub 1 because it has a 1 underneath, and that's called sub, equals m times x minus x sub 1. So this is read x sub 1, where x1 and y1 are just a point, and the m is still the slope. The x's and y's will stay the same in the problem. So when we go to start doing this, we're going to plug in something right here, and right here. And then we're going to do some simplification. We're going to do some math after we do that. Okay, so we're not going to be plugging in a bunch of different places. Alright, if you're given a point and a slope, step 1 is to identify the slope. And that's going to be your m. And whatever your m is going to get placed right there. Then you identify your x1 and your y1, your x1 and your y point. The y point goes first, the x point goes second, and then we just start simplifying. Okay, so here's a little template. We're going to use these in class when we come back. The first thing I always do is label them x1, y1. X is always first, y is always second. The formula says y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So y1 goes first, so we put a 2 right here. M comes next, so we put a 4 there. X1 comes next, so we put a y there. Now all we're trying to do is simplify this and get this solved for y, so we can draw our line down. We can even go ahead and box this. But before we get rid of this 2, we've got to double rainbow the 4. So we bring down the y minus 2. 4 times x is 4x. 4 times the negative 1 is negative 4. Now we're ready to get rid of the plus 2. Plus 2, y equals, bring down your 4x. Negative 4 plus 2 is negative 2. And this is the slope-intercept form using point slope. This is called point slope form. And then this is the slope-intercept form. And so we put it into point slope form only to change it into slope-intercept form because we're good with slope-intercept form. Remember the benefits of slope-intercept form are we can put this into our calculator and be able to take a look at what it looks like. Okay. Here we go again. x1, y1, slope of 1/2. So m equals negative 1/2. Okay. So it's y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So y1 goes here, so it's a negative 3 that we put in. M is negative 1/2, and x is 2. So anytime right here we have back-to-back negatives, we're going to change that to a plus. Okay. Draw our line down. There's our y. Distribute the 1/2. So we bring this down, y plus 3. Negative 1/2 times x is negative 1/2 x. Negative 1/2 times negative 2, I'm going to go to the calculator on that. Negative 1/2 times negative 2. This is a positive 1. Next thing, minus 3 to both sides, minus 3. Notice how I put this underneath the 1 and not underneath the x because those are like terms. They cancel out here. Y equals negative 1/2 x positive 1 and a negative 3 makes a negative 2, and this is our slope-intercept form. So again, this is point-slope form, this is slope-intercept form. Alright, so eventually it's going to get to the point where they don't give you the template, so you have to write your own little template. So it's y minus, and you leave a space, then you leave another space, x minus, and you leave a space. So you have spaces right there for those 3 spots. So x1, y1, and our m. So this is a negative 2, a negative 1, and a positive 4. Draw my line down. Minus and minus changes to a plus, so this becomes y plus 2. Distribute the negative 1, so that becomes negative 1x and positive 4. Get rid of the plus 2 by doing a minus 2 to both sides. Y equals negative 1x. 4 minus 2 is positive 2. So we just dropped the 1, so it's just y equals negative x plus 2. And these are both really the same thing. Alright, the next thing says, what if we have 2 points? Can you use the point-slope form? And the answer to that is yes, you can use the point-slope form. You'll use one of these 2 points, and then you have to find the slope. These notes suggest that you do the slope formula, which you can do. I would actually suggest that you just stack them on top of each other like this. And then do the old change in y. That goes down 1, and that goes up 2. So the slope is negative 1/2, and then just pick one of these 2 points. So I'll just pick this one, x1, y1. So we have y minus our y1 equals m times x minus our x1. So our m is negative 1/2, our point is 6 and negative 4. Draw our line down. This time our double negative is right over here, so we change that to a plus. Negative 1/2 times those, so bring down y minus 6. Negative 1/2 times x is negative 1/2 x. Negative 1/2 times 4 is a negative 2. Minus 6 gets a plus 6. Y equals negative 1/2 x. Negative 2 plus 6 is positive 4. Okay. So that's always an option, is to do our slope and then do point slope. But anytime we have 2 points, and we're at school and we have our calculators, we're just going to do stat edit. It doesn't make any sense to go through this long process when all I would have to do is type them in L1 and L2 and do the stat buttons for stat edit, and it would give me this too. So this is how you do it by hand, but we could do it using stat edit. So I'm not going to do the other 2 because in class we wouldn't do it that way. Alright, to graph from point slope, you have 2 options. You can convert the equation to slope-intercept form. So we'll try that here. So we draw our line down. It's the same thing we've been doing. 3 times x, 3 times that, so plus 2. That becomes 3x and minus 3. Then you minus 2 to both sides. And you get y equals 3x. Negative 3 and negative 2 becomes negative 5. Now we could type this into our calculator, and we could get a good picture of what it looks like. But if we were hand graphing, our m is our first number, which is 3. So that's 3 over 1. Our b is our second number, which is negative 5. So we go down 5 and put a dot. Then the slope of 3 is up 3, right 1. So 1, 2, 3, right 1. And so this is what our line would look like. Okay. Now if you're going to do it using the point slope form, then you pull out the slope, which is m. And then you pull out your point, which is, this was y1, and this was x1, so x1 is 1, y1 is 2, and instead of starting at the y-intercept, you start at the given point, which is over 1, up 2, and then you count out that slope, down 1, over 1, 2, 3, and then you would just draw your line like that. Okay. So to me, I would probably, because we're most comfortable putting things into y equals, I'd put in y equals, and then I would use the calculator to graph them instead of doing either of the other 2 methods. Alright, let's take a look at a word. Alright, so when you read a word problem, you always have to check to see, do I have a slope and intercept, or do I have a point and a slope? Okay? The other option is you could have 2 points, so a point and a point, and if that were the case, then you would do stat edit if you see 2 points in there. So it says Marty is spending money at an average rate of $3 per day. After 14 days, he has $68 left. The amount left, T, depends on the number of days, D, that have passed. So this is a rate, and another word for rate is a slope. 14 and 68 is not a y-intercept. That's just another point. So we can do point slope form. So our m, or our rate, is 3, and our point that they gave us is 14, comma 68. So this would be our x1, y1. So it would be y minus y1, 68, equals slope times x minus x1, which is 14. Okay, that's point slope form of it. Now it tells us to write it in slope intercept form, and so that's where we just distribute. So this becomes y minus 68 equals 3x minus 14 times 3 minus 42. Add 68 to both sides. And so I get y equals 3x, and then negative 42 plus 68 is plus 26. So my final equation is y equals 3x plus 26. And then it says how much money did he start with? And so if we start looking at this, that's how much he's raising each month. This is always our starting amount. So he started with $26.